You kept the guys after practice longer than you usually do. Was there any particular reason? Do you have a message for them?
No, we actually had last night we had a speaker, Marcus Goodlow, that played quarterback here. You may remember Marcus Goodlow. No, I just introduced him to our team. He spoke to a group from the athletic department last night, some of our junior, senior student athletes, and it was just an opportunity for him to speak to our players.
Coach, how big is this game from a recruiting standpoint, whereas a lot of these guys, you're both fighting for the same talent pool?
I think winning is the key. Whether it's, quite honestly, winning last week at Wyoming, winning next week at Nevada, or winning this week against New Mexico State. I think that's the momentum of the program. So I don't know. I think that's a good storyline. I don't know if that's a major factor in this game. So I think it's just winning a game and showing momentum in the program is the most important thing.
Coach, what do you remember about last year? Going down that drive. Do you have any errors at all? It's over.
I remember a lot of things about last year's game. I mean, I remember that we were 0-2 going into that game down there. Tempo really affected us. They went just maniacal, fast tempo on offense. I remember Lamar Jordan coming in. Cole with the hamstring really couldn't play. I remember Lamar Jordan with that final drive of the game to win down there. And I remember them come roaring back, and probably if there were 30 seconds left in the game, they would have beat us. So very fortunate to get out of there with a win. So I remember the crowd. I thought it was really a tremendous atmosphere. I thought their student body, I thought the atmosphere in that stadium was a definitive home field advantage for them. So I remember a heck of a football game. I thought it was good for the state of New Mexico. Very fortunate to win the game.
Is there any chance, and there's been talk over the years of trying to make it happen, of moving this to the last game of the year, with a lot of rivalry games? I know it's not a conference matchup, which makes it difficult, but is that even a possibility or something that you would?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. That'd be something I'd be in favor of. I have heard some conversation about that. Every place I've been, we've normally been in a game like that. I would be an advocate for that if we could get that done.
What do you think is the biggest thing holding it up?
I don't know. I don't know. You asked me if I would be excited about that, so I would be.
What are some of the challenges that you guys faced against New Mexico State this time around?
Good on offense. They have one of the top passers in the conference, a guy that started all last year. They have the third leading receiver, I think, in the Sun Belt Conference. Third leading running back in the Sun Belt Conference. They have about 3 or 4 receivers that it seemed like they've been around there forever. Offensive line has 3 starters back. They're a very efficient, big play style offense. That's obviously a major concern for us.
You were able to get a lot of people to the ball in keeping Brian Hill contained. How much tougher is it to try to get multiple people to the ball in their spread?
Yeah, Rick, you're exactly right. It's 2 different styles. Wyoming played with a tight end, played with 2 backs. There were more people in the box. Certainly New Mexico State's going to spread us out, 4 receivers a lot of times, 3 receivers and a tight end a majority of the time. It's a completely different game. I mean, it provides a much different challenge, much similar to Tulsa, very similar styles. And they're pretty balanced. They obviously have a running back that is very talented. So it's kind of a different setup for us defensively.
Coach, why are you better equipped this year to handle the tempo and the pickup?
I don't know that we are. I felt I think Tulsa will be the biggest test we've had because they are just ridiculously fast. Tulsa and Baylor. New Mexico State hasn't done as much of that this year as they did last year. But I would think particularly with an open date, particularly with what happened last year, we're full on practicing like it's going to be fast tempo. So hopefully we are. We feel like we've practiced against our offense a lot more. We felt like at times in Tulsa it hurt us. It didn't hurt us, I would say, exceedingly, but it hurt us at times. So hopefully we are. I guess we'll find out because I fully expect them to do it.
Do you you or the players have to be a little more on guard this week to make sure you don't give the other team bulletin board material on a kind of rivalry game like this?
I don't think so. You know, I haven't thought a whole lot about that. You know, I would hope the maturity of our team, that we totally worry about ourselves and focus on ourselves a lot more than the opponent. So I haven't really put much thought into that. I think sometimes as coaches, maybe we try to fabricate or try to, you know, come up with issues that really, when the ball's kicked off, don't matter. So I've tried to keep it as simple as we can keep it and try to just build on some momentum. You know, we talked to our team. Last year we beat New Mexico State in Las Cruces. We came home for a Friday night game against Fresno. Couldn't do it, couldn't get it done. We go to UTSA the next week against a good UTSA team. We beat them in the Alamo Dome. Come home to San Diego State on a Friday night. Couldn't get it done. You know, so hopefully we've learned, and hopefully we're a little bit better. So it's totally all about us. It really is. It's totally about us getting ready to play this game.
So what is it about the difficulties, since you brought it up, of winning those back-to-back games, kind of putting it together?
Yeah, I think, you know, hopefully part of it was Fresno State. Hopefully part of it was San Diego State, two really good teams. But that's the key. You know, can we at some point gain some momentum in this program? You know, can we gain some momentum? That's what we're all trying to do. It's no different than what they're trying to do down the road. And they had that opportunity against UTEP. They're coming up here with another opportunity. You know, we're all fighting, we're all trying to do the same things. And for us to string two in a row together would be huge.
What would it mean to the group that you brought in 2012, especially those that are playing the New Mexico State game for the last time, to go 4-0?
I think that's something that's significant. There's no question about that. Anytime you've finished your eligibility and you're undefeated against your biggest rival, I think that's something that you can take with you the rest of your life. So yeah, I think that is a big deal.
Coach, outside the locker room, it's a big deal. I mean, when you have a rivalry game, is it any different for you guys, preparation-wise?
I don't think so. You know, from that standpoint, I really don't. You know, I've been in a lot of them, and we've always prepared the same way. We've always prepared the same way. And again, you know, you try to narrow the focus the best you can, because it always comes down to technique, and it always comes down to who plays the best. You know, when that ball's kicked off, I don't know that anybody's going to be thinking, man, this is different because it's New Mexico State, or this is different on their end because it's New Mexico. You know, you really try to narrow your focus and just concentrate on what's really going to matter. You know, we went to Wyoming. I can think back a week ago standing here. You know, we talked about trying to regain some identity. You know, what truly are we on offense? I think we went up there, we played clean on offense. We didn't have a penalty, we didn't have a turnover. We had 10 explosives in the running game. And then we talked about trying to get the running back stopped before he got started. We talked about tackling him low. I thought we accomplished that. So we made some strides as a football team. And now can we continue? Can we continue to get better as a team? And I focus on that. You know, we played that game Saturday. As you guys know, the coaches were in here at 7 a.m. on Sunday. We got through the Wyoming game as quick as we could, and then we started our focus on New Mexico State. So, I mean, it's the exact same process every week. But, you know, I'll never, ever take for granted what winning a game does, as far as just feeling better and just looking at things on the brighter side. It's a huge intangible. And, you know, hopefully we can take advantage of that.
Coach, with all your experience and stuff like that, how much of a challenge has this whole thing been? You know, just getting to the next step in each thing, because you've been able to draw off your past experiences to keep lifting and lifting. Yeah,
we've, you know, again, I go back. I had a long conversation with Craig Bowl before the game up there in Wyoming. And Craig volunteered about what a big rebuilding job it was. And I look at 18 and 22, the 40 games before he came there. And it's a big rebuilding job. So you put that into context with 3 and 37, lowest number of scholarships in the country. I can keep going down the line with other issues. I think we've done a heck of a job getting it back to where competitive. We all know what the next step is. We all know what the next step is, and that's to win. But even when we get to that point, we still are who we are. We're going to have to fight, claw, scratch for everything we get. But, you know, big picture-wise, I don't really like to talk about it much because it's week to week. But I think we've done some incredible things. I really mean that. And I think these players and coaches deserve a lot of credit.
You kind of rotated your corners up at Wyoming.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to do, or are you just looking for two guys that can?
Yeah, I don't think we played as well as we're capable of playing at corner in that Wyoming game. You know, we lost focus a little bit. We didn't play as good a technique as we could play. Again, they had good receivers and a good quarterback, but I'm not sure we made it as hard on them as we're capable. So we continue to look at different guys. I.B. Brown's back now; he's healthy. I think Cranston's been somewhat solid. Donnie Duncan's done some good things, but he's also lost focus at times and hurt us. Nias Martin came in, played about 29 plays up there. We're still waiting to get Bijan Parker in the game and play. So, you know, we're still, I still think the best is ahead for this team. I really am sincere about that. But again, corners, a lot like the offensive line, nobody's jumped up and just proven they're better than the other guy. And so, yeah, we continue to rotate in there at corner a little bit. And this team will totally tax us. You know, we'll find out a lot more this week, how consistent we can play technique throughout an 80 or 90 play football game. One thing that, not that it matters, you know, I said we had 0 penalties on offense. We had 1 penalty on special teams where we actually on purpose took the delay of game on punt. So we had more room to punt, pooch punt. Then we had 5 penalties on offense. 2 of those personal fouls have come back that it was the wrong call. The first play of the game on Donnie Duncan when they called him for horse collar up there was a missed call. Also the call on Markel Byrd on the sideline was a missed call. They have admitted that both those personal fouls shouldn't have been called. Back to the Arizona State game, it came back that it should have been intentional grounding and it should have been a safety, along with a false start they had on 3rd and 1 that they didn't call, that they got the first down. It would have been 3rd and 6 instead of 3rd and 1. They got their first point. So we've had 4 missed calls over the last 2 weeks that have come back to be proven that they were the wrong call.
Could the safety call have been reviewed?
No, and I'm going to advocate that. I think that's a glitch in the system. Again, I think anything that has to do with did the ball cross the line of scrimmage, did the ball cross the plane of the goal line, did he step out of bounds, those really aren't judgment calls to me like holding or pass interference. Those are line calls. Those are line calls that clearly are yes and no. There's no judgment on that. So I'm going to go, as soon as I get the opportunity here with some time, I'm going to make that recommendation that did the ball cross the line of scrimmage or it didn't, should be reviewable. There's no reason that that should not be. But as of right now, it's not. And I was actually surprised by that. I admit that that would not have been reviewable. But it certainly should be reviewable. Don't you guys agree? I mean, that's like, did the kid step out of bounds or not? That's either black or white.
Was not their explanation, though, that they were saying there was a receiver?
That's what I thought in the game, because the ball was so far over there. And I saw the running back kind of blocking, but he was clearly away from where the ball was thrown. I thought that's what it was. But then I heard him say something about quarterback was outside the tackle box, which now we kick in if he's saying there wasn't a receiver in the area. Then if you're outside the tackle box, it has to be thrown past the line of scrimmage. So it wasn't that. But that's what I thought at first. And that's why I thought, you know, that's not reviewable. I mean, because that would be a total judgment call right there.
Coach, on that touchdown pass, they reversed. They're, you know, when I watched the replay 5 or 6 times, in the rule book, he caught the ball, and then the next movement, he brought the ball back in. That's an incomplete pass.
I don't think so. First of all, I think that was the right call. It was an unbelievable play by the quarterback, right, Kaufman, because Rothschilder came on a nickel blitz, was right in his face. I mean, it was a great throw. But to me, he caught the ball, and then his foot came down, and he did maintain possession as he went out of bounds. Because that's the first thing I thought was he did not have possession. But once you catch it, if you maintain that possession of that football, then that's enough. If he'd have juggled that at all, that would have been overturned. Actually, it wouldn't have been overturned because they called it an incomplete pass. I mean, and I'll tell you this, Wyoming's receivers, 4'83", and that quarterback, they are really good players, and I thought they really played hard. But that call, we didn't even send that call in because I thought it was the right call.
Coach, getting back to the New Mexico State game, how much of an advantage, if any at all, do they have coming off the bye week in a rivalry game?
That's their deal. You know, we don't have an open date. We played Saturday. You'd have to ask Doug Martin how much of an advantage that is or not.
Coach McCorley, you have to be pretty happy with him because last year, remember, we didn't have that guy to be able to and get that 3-yard touchdown, and then what he did to break away on a 43-yard touchdown. You have to be probably happy.
Yeah, I kidded him. I said, you told me you were 4'6". You look at you were 4'8" on that touchdown run. He said he was having a hard time picking his legs up. He said it had something to do with the altitude. You know, but no, he's a great kid, McCorley. You know, and he you know, he's a 220-pound tailback. You know, in junior college, he rushed for a lot of yards. And I think we were very, very fortunate to get him out of the state of Mississippi and have him here for 3 years of football. So I think what you're saying is right on. I mean, he is that short yardage back that gives us some opportunities. Don't underestimate little Gip hitting it up in there. You know, we'd had Gip tripped on the quarterback's foot one time there later when we didn't convert the first down. But just back to McCorley, it is nice having a big back like that that you can count on when you really need it. Yeah.
Big block by Reese in that play too.
Pardon?
Reese had the big block in that.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great block by Reese. They had a freshman defensive end, 91, in there, and Reese got that peel back block and kicked him out, and we just sliced it, you know, and that was big, you know. And their safety, 28, who is really a good player, a freshman. It's triple option presentation, so the free safety's running like heck for the quarterback. And once that ball creases the line of scrimmage, there's no one there. And that's one of the big byproducts of triple option is you get those safeties running. And if the ball creases the line of scrimmage, that's where our big plays come from. And that's something that had been missing with our football team, quite honestly. You know, we've had a couple of them. But it was encouraging to just kind of get our identity back up there and have some success.
Coach, your offensive line kind of getting more in the rhythm like you'd like it?
Yeah, a little more of a rhythm. You know, we played 5 guys every snap at Wyoming. You know, we kept Oldenkamp at guard, we kept Aaron Jenkins at guard, and then Reno at tackle, and Romine at tackle, and Mahina at center. We played every snap. You'd love to get Chris Lewis in there, you'd love to get Ziltz in there, which we've done, but we do have we're starting to gain a little bit of continuity in there. We got to continue to develop some younger guys now, but we did. You know, we played all 5. It was clean. It was back to looking like we looked. You know, it was clean, and that's the biggest thing I take out of the Wyoming game was that. At least now we have a chance to build and diversify now because we were able really for the first time this year to be clean in our base offense, and we weren't even really clean against Mississippi Valley State. You know, that was just that wasn't a true test.
Is Tyler Rogers that much better for them? This year he's not throwing as many interceptions and that much more of a dangerous threat?
He's good. He's good. You know, I saw it last year throughout the season, not just in our game, but throughout their entire season. I've seen it early this season. Obviously, he showed flashes last year. He did some great things. They did have some turnovers. It looks like they're through that right now. Very efficient on offense.
Coach, you ever had a player like Reese White who this undersized tight end, but he seems like he's always executing a block. He seems like he's always getting the second effort. He's always there. You had a player like that before at that size?
I think that's a great point, and you see the same thing I do. He plays, you know, we kind of use the term in football, violent feet. His feet are always like this, you know, violent. He's not violent feet. He's able to adjust to things. But most of all, he does everything full speed, and leaves nothing in the tank. And he's a heck of a football player. He really is. He's a unique guy, and he is a heck of a football player. And I remember when I first took this job, you know, you know, obviously the Cole Gauchi story, but so many people told me, man, the best player on that football team is Reese White. And I go back to people in the community just saying that, and we're so fortunate that we were able to get him to come here. he's had a heck of a career, and he is a unique guy. I don't know that I've had a guy that maximizing everything he has every down. He loves football, has great hands, which we don't get him the football enough. But he's fun to watch. I enjoy every time I put the tape on with Reese White, practice or games.
Anything else?
Okay, man. Thank you, guys.